Hello Summoners and welcome to another episode of ProGuides OP Pick Ban, now on patch 10.8. These are the champions that are going to be a bit overtuned for one reason or another, so they have the power to affect your games more than they otherwise should. In light of that, you'll be wanting to either deny their existence altogether or secure them for your own team. Now before we get into it though, our question of the day is, which champion do you think needs nerfs right now? For me, it's gotta be Vladimir. The champion's absolutely disgusting, hard to shut down, and just obliterates my games. I don't want to see him on the Rift ever again. But let us know your answers in the comments below. And with that out of the way, let's begin. Starting off our list in the top lane is Wukong. It's been a good bit of time now since Riot released the new Kong, but he's still an absolute terror to play against. He's ridiculously strong and it just doesn't feel like he has any weak stages of the game. In lane, his trades with his Q's empowered auto attack alone are hard to deal with, but it's even more impossible when you throw in his E's gap closer and attack speed buff. Throw in the fact that his clone now actively seeks to square up with you and fight, plus his ability to activate his ultimate twice, and you can see why he's been running rampant. 2 AoE knockups is a bit much. Kled is our second top lane pick for patch 10.8, and he's definitely worth your attention. Kled is a champion that likes to be in the thick of the fight, and with the recent buffs to Blade of the Ruined King, he's been benefiting even more into the tank matchups that we've been seeing in top lane. Kled can initiate fights with his Q's Bear Trap or his E's Joust. His W is his most important DPS spell due to the attack speed it gives, and I think we all know how it feels to hear the audio cue for Kled's ultimate, then see him and his allies speeding towards you. Kled's trading power in lane is great, but it's his ultimate that makes him so effective in the meta right now. Being able to turn that ult on and make flanks or picks is a great tool to have, and it also enables him to roam before laning phase is over, so don't be afraid to walk down from top lane and impact the map. Now before we head into the jungle, we'll throw some of their builds up on the screen there for you guys one last time so you can get them memorized. Graves will be our first jungle pick on patch 10.8 for a few reasons. Graves is a duelist style jungler who wants to invade and steal camps as much as possible. This is a pretty easy goal to achieve when his passive makes jungle camps extremely kiteable, so he's barely ever touched by the camps themselves. Now on the other side of the jungle clear equation, his clear is fast and versatile due to his shotgun auto attacks hitting multiple enemies alongside his Q's explosive canister. The smoke screen on his W is generally used for confusing opponents in fights, but the slow is also useful for chasing down kills. Graves' E can be used to reposition on jungle camps, dodge skill shots, or even just to bring in another shotgun shell to keep the damage coming. His ult is an explosive shot that will absolutely ravage whoever it comes into contact with, as well as pushing Graves back a bit when he uses it. So try to utilize this fadeaway for your own advantage. Another important note here is that the jungle EXP changes in patch 10.8 have made it to where getting solo kills is even more rewarding than before, so strong early game junglers in general will probably be seeing a bit more love. Speaking of strong early game junglers, Elise is our second pick in the jungle. Elise is an early game AP champion with burst damage that excels at catching people and sending them to the gray screen. Elise is a transformation champion with access to 6 abilities excluding her ultimate, since that just changes her back and forth between her spider form and human form. She uses this wide array of abilities to great effect in the early game, with her human W being an AoE explosive spider and helps her clear camps, and her spider form W being an attack speed steroid for her, and her passive spiderlings that also give them some lifesteal. This keeps her healthy in the jungle, and with the added damage from both her human form Q and her spider form Q, she clears pretty quickly as well, since they do damage based on how much health the enemy does and does not have respectively. This damage especially comes into play during her ganks. Elise can lock down enemies from a good bit away with her human E's web shot, and once they're stunned, they're pretty much spoken for since Elise can rattle all of her damage off in about 2 seconds. On top of her potent ability to secure early kills, Elise is also a notoriously amazing turret diving champion with her spider form E, which takes her up into the air and makes her untargetable. This also helps her drop aggro when making turret dives, and it eliminates a lot of the counterplay available in that situation. And here are those builds once again, so go ahead and take another look at them so you know how to approach their playstyle. Katarina will be our first of 2 mid lane picks for patch 10.8. When Riot changed Death's Dance, they intended it to become a better item for bruisers, but it's found a nice home in the hands of Katarina, who's an AP assassin that traditionally goes Gunblade so that she can heal herself. And lately, she's also been going Conqueror, so she can heal herself more. The synergy between her AoE burst damage and her healing proc is obnoxious, and once she gets rolling, she's incredibly hard to kill, particularly due to how easily her ulti stacks Conqueror, but also due to her E's dash making her very slippery. Aside from being a huge pain to kill, her mobility also means she's an excellent roaming champion, which is super important in the mid lane right now. She's mobile, she's got a lot of damage, and she's hard to kill. Honestly, not much more that you could ask for. Fizz is our second mid lane pick for patch 10.8, for similar reasons to Katarina. Fizz is also a high mobility AP assassin, but where Katarina is hard to kill because of her healing, Fizz is hard to kill because of his dashes. Fizz's E lets him hop onto his trident and become untargetable. When he comes back down, he does a huge burst of damage to whoever he lands on in a decently sized area. His Q lets him dash through a target for another chunk of damage, and his W is an auto attack reset that throws some damage over time into the equation. But Fizz isn't even limited to just crushing lane through his E outplays though. His ult is a long-ranged ability that applies a heavy slow before a shark comes up and chomps his target. So he can use it to engage fights and buy him some time to approach any potential victims. Use Fizz's mobility and roam potential to win your allied lanes and snowball the game. And one last glance at these builds before we roam on down to the bottom lane. Vayne will be our first pick for patch 10.8's bot laners. Vayne is a hyperscaling ADC that rules the late game through true damage. Vayne has pretty short range, which means that if an enemy wants to win against Vayne, they need to abuse her in lane before she gets items and outscales them. With Ezreal and Kai'Sa being such popular picks right now though, Vayne isn't really getting bullied as hard as she needs to in order to really be set behind. This means that a lot of Vayne players are getting to scale into their late game power for free, making her an overpowered pick in the current meta. Honestly though, her early game isn't even that abysmal since she has her Q to both reposition and to let her perform 3 quick auto attack trades. She can also use her E's Condemn to push away unwanted aggression or to be aggressive herself by stunning enemies against a wall. Her ulti makes her a complete menace late game though, since she goes invisible with every Q tumble, letting her rain down her W's true damage procs with near impunity. And now for Caitlyn, who will be our second bot lane pick for patch 10.8, mostly because she's the bot lane's most efficient lane bully. With picks like Vayne and Kai'Sa rolling around, it's important that they get shut down in the early game before they can become relevant. Caitlyn's long auto attack range means she's just the carry for the job, and on top of her being a good answer to the hyper carries, she also has a nice place in the meta through her general kit on its own. Her Q lets her harass targets under tower, her W can be used to set up a trap line around objectives to make her team hard to approach, and even if someone does manage to get close to her, she can just use her E's net to slow them and push herself away. Caitlyn's ult is mostly used for finishing off enemies trying to run away, but it is a nice chunk of damage, so you can fire it away, maybe chunk somebody out, and dissuade them from getting into the fight. Just make sure they don't have a Nami or Soraka to kind of just heal it up. But all in all, Caitlyn scales well into her damage if you're proactive with creating a lead for yourself, and you're also good at setting up your traps for extra headshot damage. Put into practice with her, and she's an excellent champion to even blind pick. Here are those bottom laner builds for you one more time, so go ahead and take a look. Blitzcrank is a champion we don't see at the top of the tier lists a lot, but he's looking really good for patch 10.8. Squishy supports are coming back into the spotlight, and Blitzcrank is one of the best options to deal with them. Having the ability to just reach out and bring a valuable carry into the middle of your team is pretty invaluable. The trouble is when you miss and bring in a big beefy frontliner instead, so you have to be careful with your late game target selection. The long range grab is Blitzcrank's core ability, since everything else is centered around capitalizing on a successful grab. His W gives him a brief movement speed so that he can get into hook range, his E is an empowered auto attack that knocks up whoever it hits, and his ult is an AoE burst of damage around himself that also silences any enemy's hit. If your team doesn't have a frontliner, you should definitely be picking or banning Blitzcrank for yourself and get him off the table before he grabs you and puts you on his team's dinner plate. The last pick for patch 10.8's list of OP champions is Leona. She's been strong for pretty much the whole season and Riot hasn't seen fit to nerf her, so here she is yet again. Leona is in contention for the best engaged support in the game and is arguably the best one for snowballing a lead. Her early game power spike is just absolutely silly, with her passive enabling her carry to put out way more damage than they should. Her E's ranged engage lets her get onto a target, then follow up with her Q stun. Activating her W gives her enough defensive stats to just about ignore any retaliation until it explodes, dealing even more damage. Once she hits 6 though, she doesn't even have to be limited by her E's range anymore. She can just place a long-range solar flare on whoever she wants dead. Sometimes she can use it to peel, of course, but usually she's the aggressor. If you're sick of watching Leona's outdamage your ADC single-handedly, it's time to start banning her or even playing her. Either way, I don't think that you should subject yourself to that. Finally, here are the support builds up on your screen one last time. That's it for this episode for OP Pick Ban. Thanks for watching, guys. We hope you enjoy this video along with the rest of our patch 10.8 series soon to arrive. Once again, let us know in the comments which champion you think needs to be nerfed the most so we can hit you with the hot, fresh heart react. We really do love hearing from you guys, so it's always a great time. See you guys next time. Good luck on the Rift and wash your hands.